Hey everybody, it is your professor, your coding friend, and your rotten soldier, and today we're going to be talking about animations. So make sure you go into Canvas and start up the starter code, make sure you're logged in, make sure you hit remix, and we're ready to go. So the easiest way to do animations in CSS is to use transition. It takes changes that are already happening in your code and just defines how they happen. So we've done some animations before. Like if you hover over a link, you can have it change color, you can have it remove its underline. So it's going from a state where it is blue and underlined to a state where it is red and not underlined. So that's an animation. And what transitions does is it defines when and how that change happens. So you can have it be, you can select that underline and say, hey, I want that to happen over a period of 2 seconds. I want it to be slow and then get really fast. I want it to delay by 1 second, so someone hovers over it and then a second later it actually does the underline. You can control all of this stuff and make it look really fancy. So for part one, we're going to just show you how it works in the simplest manner. We're going to go into our CSS, we're going to go into a hover, and we're going to give it a different background color. So we're just going to change it to forest green, and I'll show you what that looks like. So in our CSS, I already have the a hover selector down here, so you can just go in and put background dash color forest green, and I think, yeah, this should be capital F, maybe it doesn't matter. So there you go. So now for all of my links, all of these little buttons are links. When I hover over them, they go from blue to green. Awesome, it's a little animation. All right, but the next thing I want to do is in my one selector, so my first button, I have a class of .1, and I'm going to use transition to select the background color, and I'm going to say I want that to take place over 2 seconds. So the transition from blue to green will take place over 2 seconds. And then we're going to do it a little bit shorter in 2, because 2 seconds is a really long time, and I'll show you what that looks like, why it's better to go shorter. Okay, so in .1, I'm going to select the background color. So what that looks like is transition, and here, let me actually get in closer so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so here in .1, I'm going to add transition property. So I'm selecting which thing I'm going to be controlling or changing. I'm going to say background color, because that's the thing that I'm changing with this hover. Okay, so nothing's happened yet. I have to say what I want to change about it. I want to say transition dash duration. I'm going to say I want it to take place over 2 seconds. Okay, and so now if I go to hover over it, ooh, it's very slow. So 2 seconds doesn't seem like a long time, but in computer reactions, that is a long time. We are very impatient on the computer. So I'm going to copy this and show you what a usual timing looks like for something like this. I'm going to say 400 milliseconds, and this is going to look like that. And that's going to be on my second button. So you can see that feels way more normal for the internet. This is super slow. And this is normal. I think 400 milliseconds is how long a blink is. So you usually want things to happen within the blink of an eye on the internet, unless you're trying to be dramatic. Okay. Another thing we can control is the pacing of that transition. So we know it's going to go from blue to green within 2 seconds, but we can have it stay blue for longer and then quickly become green, or we can have it quickly move from blue to a turquoise to that green. So you can change the timing of that. If you've taken the animation course yet, or if you're familiar with animation, this is called easy ease, when things are slow in, fast out, that sort of stuff. It defines the timing. So these are the different timing functions you can choose from. You can say ease, ease in, ease out, ease in and out, and linear, where it's just boop, the same speed the whole time. And it looks like this: transition, timing function, and then whichever one you select. And I could describe these, but I'm going to give you just an illustration of what they look like. So linear, you can see it's going the same speed throughout. And you can see ease, which is the default. If you don't put anything, it's going to automatically ease. It's slow, fast, slow. That's usually how things work when they're like, when you start running, you don't start at full speed. Your car doesn't accelerate at full speed. It gets slow, then it gets fast, and then when it goes to stop, it gets slow again. And then these are deciding if the ease is only on the out, if the ease is only on the in, that sort of thing. You can get even more specific than this, but these are just good places to start. And they make your stuff look really fancy. I recommend playing around with them. It makes your stuff have that extra little polish. So the other thing we're going to talk about is delay. So when someone hovers over something, you can have it stop, like wait to transition however many seconds. You don't want it to be that long, especially if it's when someone first hovers or clicks over something, because you don't want them to think like, oh, this isn't working. Like my hovering isn't doing anything. It's not a link. It's just text or something, or the link is broken. So you don't want it to wait too long. But for something like when your cursor moves off of the button, it's nice to have it delay for like a little bit of a second before moving down. That looks really nice, instead of immediately bloop. So we're going to put both of these inside of our .3. We're going to add in a timing function of ease out, and we're going to add a delay of 200 milliseconds. So in our .3, I'm going to copy all this stuff and use it again, just recycle it. So you can see what it looks like when we add these extra things. So I'm going to say transition dash timing dash function. Almost messed it up. And I'm going to say ease out. And then I'm also going to put a delay on it. So I'm going to say transition dash delay. And I'm going to have it be for 200 milliseconds, something very short. So this is what it looks like by itself. And then this is what it looks like with the ease and the little delay. So you can see there's a bit of a difference. Cool. All right, so that's a lot of code to define one animation. So like most things, like grid, like most things that have a lot of stuff going on, like grid, padding, margin, there is a shorthand that compresses all of this stuff together. So when you're using the shorthand, you just use the word transition, colon, and then you do the property, and then you do the duration, and then you do the timing function, and then you do the delay. You don't have to use all of these. You can like delete any of them and they will go to the default. But that's the order that you should put them in. That's important because you could switch these two up on accident. So in class 3, we're going to go in and we're going to comment out all of the transition lines we just added, and we're going to replace those with the shorthand because it's going to save us so many lines of code and so much typing. Okay, so I'm going to comment it out, and again, to comment out something in CSS, that's just /*, and then at the end, you */. Okay, so now I've commented out. It's not processing that stuff that I've commented out. And I'm going to add in my shorthand, which is just transition, colon, and then the thing I want to select, background color, the duration, 400 milliseconds, the timing, ease out, and the delay, 200 milliseconds. And then semicolon, and if I hover over it, it acts exactly the same, but I used one line of code instead of 4, and I always like efficiency. Okay, so say you have the background's changing and the underline on your link is changing and the color of the text is changing and maybe the size of the text is changing, and you want to change all of these things at different times. You don't want to have to type transition over and over and over again. You can combo the transition line by having one set of rules and then a comma and then the next set of rules, and you just keep doing that for all the transitions that you want to have for that one selector. So we're going to practice that in Hover. We're going to change our font size to 46. So that way it's changing color and it's changing the size of the font when we hover over the button. And we're going to add our transition that we just made. We're going to put that into class 4. And we're going to add a new transition rule with a comma. And we're going to just add this in here. So this is on the canvas if you just want to copy and paste it, or you can just look as I'm typing and retype as I'm going. So in 4, I'm just going to take this bad boy. I'm going to go to 4, and I'm going to paste it in there. And then after this 200 milliseconds, after this rule is totally done, I'm going to hit a comma. And I like putting it on a new line just because it's easier to keep track of. CSS does not care that I've put it on a new line. You can just keep going if you want to, but I find when things keep going horizontally, I like lose track of them. So this is nice. Oh, first I need to add the new change I want to make, which is font size : 46, and I'm adding this into my hover. And so now if I hover over everything, that font size gets bigger and my button gets bigger too. Okay, so now let's control that font size transition because it's just bloop. No time. It's not classy. We gotta make it classy. So we're gonna do font dash size because we're selecting it in our transition. We're saying how long we want it to last. I'm gonna make it 800 milliseconds just to give you a difference. I'm also gonna use a different timing. I'm gonna use ease in this time. Oh, is that right? Oh no, I said linear. Okay, my bad. Linear. And then 100 milliseconds. There we go. Okay, so you can see how 3 looks. This is exactly the same, except now we have the font one in here. So if I hover over 4, ooh, that looks way cooler. Okay. All right, so one more for this. You can do all. So say you have multiple properties happening on your button and you want them all to be animated the same. You don't want to have to put comma and then repeat this over and over again for each of the properties you want to change. So if you want all of the properties that are changing when you hover over your button or what have you, you can just do all. And then any property that changes is going to have the rest of that stuff applied to it. So we're going to try that with our .5. We're going to add all of our transitions from .3, but we're going to change the background color to all. I'll show you that. So in 3, again, I'm going to copy and paste this one line. And instead of background color, I'm just going to say all. So you can see what 3 looks like without anything. And then if I go to 5, there you go, which is very similar to 4. 4, I had a little bit more nuanced control. I have the text and the background color animating on a different timeline. The text takes twice as long for this one. But here, in just one line, I have them both animating together. So, just depends on the look you want. Okay, so that's for transitions that are already happening, say, when you hover or you click, or things that you have already changed with pseudo states or what have you. If you want to change something that you don't really have a property for, say like you want to scale something up that isn't clickable, maybe it's just when you load the page you want something to fade in from the left side, and there's no like reaction or anything in your code that already exists that you can use transition on, you can make an animation using keyframes. So you'd use @keyframes, and then you decide at what point in the transition things change. So you'd say at 0% of the way through my transition, I want it to be twice its usual size, and then 60% of the way through, I want it to be super small, and then 100% of the way through, I want it to be its normal size. So you can define different properties inside of @keyframes. This is going to make more sense as I show you the code, but basically it just allows you to create a custom animation, name it, set out the stages of the animation and do it all in your CSS, and then just apply it to different classes. So here's an example of, say, like a fade in. So here I said at keyframes, I gave it a name, fade in. I said at the very beginning of my animation, at 0, loading bar 0, I want it to have an opacity of 0, totally transparent. And then at 100%, loading bar all the way up, I want it to have an opacity of 1, or fully opaque. So this would allow something to fade in. And then whatever I applied this to, any class, my text, my div, my images, my buttons, if I said animation fade in, it would apply this to it. So to apply my fade in, I would say animation : and then the name of that at keyframes that I made. And then same thing as with my transitions. How long I want it to take, the timing that I want it to do, and the delay that I want it to have. So let's go ahead and try this out. So we're going to create an at keyframes, and we're going to call it scale up. And what this is going to do is going to make something half its size and then go to its full size. So I'm going to use these transform : scale. To find all of the properties that you can animate with, just go up onto the MDN. There's infinity numbers. There's so many things that you can control. This is how you change scale. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So underneath 5, I'm going to do at keyframes. And I'm going to say the name of it, scale up. And I'm going to say at the beginning, which is 0%. And I have to use brackets. So this is another like little control group. I'm going to say transform : scale parentheses 0.5 semicolon. And then at my 100%, when it's all the way done, make a new selector for 100%. Make sure you do your brackets. I'm going to say transform : scale 1 semicolon. So that's a lot of grammars going on, a lot of parentheses, a lot of brackets. Just make sure you just keep track of it best you can. And so now I have my custom animation scale up. That's it. To apply it, I'm going to go into .1, my first button. I'm going to add this command here, and what this does is it says, hey, find an animation, find my animation that I made called scale up, and give it these controls. So in .1, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say animation, and I'm going to say scale up. Make sure that you are naming it the exact same way. So I had a capital U, I used camel case for my scale up, so make sure you do it the same. Don't put spaces in there. That's why I use the camel case. 400 milliseconds is how long I want it to last. I want it to have ease timing, and I want it to have a delay of 200 milliseconds. And so you can see every time I'm changing it, it's updating here. So because I just put it on the button, it's only going to do that animation when it loads onto the page, which is nice. But that when it comes into existence, it's going to do this animation. So if I refresh, you can see that's what it looks like. It goes half size and then to full size. One thing that's going to be annoying is that when we're working in glitch, it refreshes the page every time you type in here or make any changes. So it's going to like be flashing at you this whole time. So if you don't like that, you can comment it out so you don't have to see flash, flash, flash. Okay. Let's show you another example. Honestly, that's all there is to at keyframes, but I just want to show you some different ways that you can apply at keyframes to see how robust this function is. So we're going to add another one that allows the button to flip. So I'm going to make a keyframes called flip. We're going to rotate it 0 and then -180, and then we're going to apply that to our button too. So down at the bottom, underneath my at keyframes scale up, I'm going to do an at keyframes flip. And then same thing as here before. I'm actually just going to copy and paste this to save me some time. And instead of scale, I'm going to change scale to rotate Y. Same thing for down here. And I want this to start at 0, and I want this to go to negative 180. So, and now all I have to do is apply this animation to my dot 2. So I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to say animation, colon, flip. So I'm selecting the thing that I made. And I said 400 milliseconds, ease out, and no delay on this one. And so if I refresh, oh, why aren't you going, my boy? Did I name you wrong? Flip. Oh, does deg mean something? Yeah, okay, sorry. It has to be 180 deg, 180 degrees, or else it doesn't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so hit refresh and you can see it does a little flip. The text doesn't like that, but that's fine. It's just an example. All right, then we'll do one more just to show how cool it is. This one's going to be a focus one where it starts out blurred and then it comes into focus. So classy. And then we're going to apply that to our third button. So finally, at keyframes blur. And again, I'm going to copy this just to save me some time. And for this one, instead of transform, it's filter. So change these transforms to filter, change rotate Y to blur, blur, change this 0 to 12 pixels, change this blur to 0 pixels. So filter, blur, 12 pixels, and then filter, blur, 0 pixels, and we have to apply that to 3. We don't have to. We're going to apply it to 3. And to do that, we just do animation, colon, focus, because that's what I named it, 400 milliseconds, because that's what I want. I'll say ease in for this one. And I didn't put a delay on it. And, aw, and it's not working here either. What have I done? I'm a beautiful boy. Okay. Spelled animation right. I spelled focus correct. Filter, blur, 12 pixels. 1 second, I'll be back. Oh my gosh, because I named it the wrong thing. Okay, it's not blur, it's focus. It's called focus. Blur is a word that already exists. I can't use it again. Okay, it's keyframes focus, and then up here it's focus, and that's okay. You gotta make sure that you call the thing that you called it. You gotta make sure you call the thing you called it. All right, there it goes. Anyway, so that's how it looks. It looks really cool. So you can see how fun animations get. It is totally possible to overdo animations. Animations are a light touch that you want to add to your website, because otherwise you look like an early internet 90s flashing icons scrolling text, which actually I think is kind of coming back into vogue now, but just, you know, use it mindfully. Don't throw everything in there just because you can, because it is really cool and it's easy to want to do that. So, review. We talked about transitions, how you can control changes that are already happening on your website by using transition colon, and then also animations, how you can use @keyframes to define changes and then apply them to your classes in CSS, and then control how they happen. All right, I'll see you guys. That's animation, and I'll see you guys next class. Have a good one.